All right, welcome to the May School Board meeting. If everybody could, who's not standing, please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, first off, thank everyone for coming. It's going to be a busy night. We've got some retirees from the school district, teachers, administrators, et cetera. So we'll be recognizing them, and then we have a few service awards. So those that have been here, I forget what numbers, 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years will be recognized, 25. And then we have a lot of you here because you did something very cool academically or athletically, and I think Charlestown's here to report on Charlestown. Is that true? Sugartown, sorry. Sugartown, even better. How's that? All right, so let's get started.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. And I'm very privileged and honored to be here to recognize some of our staff members, not only for their contributions for 25 years, 30 years, and for one individual, 35 years of service to the community and the school district and our students. It's just a wonderful honor that I have to be able to introduce some of these individuals. And then upon recognizing our service awards, we'll then move into recognizing our retirees. There are some papers out, and hopefully you've seen those on the table and in the lobby. If not, we can get some more in. We do have a lot of people retiring, and about a dozen of our retirees are here today. And a lot of their supervisors and colleagues will say just a few kind words on each retiree's behalf. So I'd like to start first by recognizing our individuals with 25 years of service here to the Great Valley School District. And I ask that those individuals come to the podium. We do have a token of thanks, a small gift. And then I'm going to ask that you please join us here with Dr. Speaker Polubinski and Mr. Barrett. We will do a group photo after all the individuals with 25 years are recognized. First, I'd like Linnell Fitzmeyer, if you would please come down, Linnell. Linnell works at district office. Linnell is the administrative assistant to the superintendent. Congratulations, 25 years. Okay. Next is one of our teachers at Katie Markley, Mr. John Gimble. John, if you could come down, sir. Sticking with the Katie Markey theme, Mrs. Kristen Keating for 25 years of service. And from General Wayne Elementary School, music teacher Will Schaefer. Will, if you could come down, please. Okay. And one of our Great Valley Middle School clerical aides, Terry Vistardis. Terry, could you come down as well for 25 years? Thank you, Terry. We did have one individual who was unable to make it, but I do want to recognize Shannon McFarland is a teacher at Charlestown. She also has 25 years of service, but was unable to attend tonight. Lois is not. She can't stop. Yeah. Thank you. And I did want to highlight Lois Hillman. We thought Lois was going to make it. She was not. Lois Hillman is also one of our teachers at Katie Markley, and she is being recognized for 25 years of service as well. Here in the district, we do an award also in recognition for those with 30 years of service. We had one individual. It was one of our teachers at Sugartown, Sandra Evans. Unfortunately, Sandra was unable to attend, but 30 years of service at Sugartown in our district. And now for our recognition of 35 years of service, Sally Bovell, who is a reading specialist at Sugartown. Sally, congratulations. Congratulations, Sal. Thank you. And a round of applause for all of our awards. As I stated earlier, this year we had about 24 different people retire from the school district. Of that, we have about a dozen that are here tonight, and so I am going to call some of their supervisors and colleagues down to speak a few kind words. I do ask the presenters, when you come down to the podium, and then please call down all the individuals you're going to recognize. So for some of you, maybe 2 or 3 people, and then we'll end up having some acknowledgement, some very kind words, and then we'll also do a photo opportunity with Mr. Barrett and Dr. Speaker Polubinsky. So to start off our recognition of retirees, I'd like our interim food service director, Kelsey Gardner, to come down. And Kelsey, if you could recognize your retirees, we'd appreciate it.
I'll have Donna Landring come up first. Come on down, Donna. So just a few things about Donna. Donna's been working with us since 1989. It's 30 years. She's made the rounds through several different grade levels, including elementary, middle, and high school, spending most of her time at the middle school. She'll be remembered there as being the best cashier lady, always making sure the kids were taken care of, especially if a student was having a bad day or if a life skills student forgot their PIN number. Donna made sure that they felt good coming into the cafeteria and got what they needed. Her attention to detail was on point, always making sure the registers closed out at the end of the day and the production records were filled out, which is something I personally appreciated, which you know. Whether it was decorating for the holidays, baking something delicious, or driving the truck during the school year or during summer feeding, Donna did it all, and with a welcoming smile. She will be forever known as the middle school cafeteria's Miss America for the song she would sing to put a pep in everyone's step, or the mashed potato queen, because no one made the mashed potatoes like Donna. Whatever she did it with love for the staff and for the kids. Even after kids graduate, if Donna sees them in the community, she makes it a point to go and talk to them to see how they're doing. Donna loves these kids and made the middle school a better place. We are so lucky to have had you in our food service department, Donna. Thank you for all that you did.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Ann Rizzoli. Just a few things about Ann. Ann started at Great Valley in 1999. She's been here for 20 years. Ann has been a super integral part of the food service department, always making sure all of our staff have what they need to feed the kids. Even though Ann is largely behind the scenes, she really stands out in so many ways. Especially for me, I would not be able to do my job without her. She is always there to offer advice or to help you out with something you're stuck on, and she does it with a calm and approachable manner. Whether it is helping a parent understand the lunch program or helping out with all those crazy caterings, Ann does everything with a can-do attitude. Ann has been here for me and my supervisor, Nicole Melia, professionally and personally, whether it's making sure we eat lunch or helping clean up the caterings. Ann is always there when you need her. I will miss Anne so much. You really have no idea, but I know she is excited to go out and do some traveling. Anne, you deserve this time more than anyone I know. Thank you for being such a loyal friend and an amazing person to work with.
If you can, would you go up and get a picture? Mrs. Citron, if you could just come down, we'll have General Wayne next.
Good evening, board and Great Valley community members. I'd like at this time to ask if Angie Bone, Linda Mullaney, and Jane Walker would come up to the podium with me.
Congratulations.
Tonight, I have the privilege of honoring 3 individuals who have given so much of themselves to General Wayne and to the Great Valley School District. Linda, Angie, and Jane have served in different capacities throughout the years as General Wayne instructional aides. No matter what role they served, their devotion and time to our children has been invaluable. Teachers, students, and administration rely heavily on what they do each and every day. They have touched so many lives. Linda has worked at General Wayne, she first started at Sugartown and then moved to General Wayne as an instructional aide from 1993 to 2018, an amazing 25-year career. She retired September 2018. But we need to go back and think about this. Linda started at Sugartown and remained until 2001. And then moved to General Wayne. And when we moved, I became the assistant principal. And in talking to Mr. Fratz, he always shared with me that I needed to remember when Linda retired that she was one of the first hired instructional aides. The teachers Linda worked with always were happy to have such a hardworking and reliable aide. Linda and her husband, Jeff, have 4 daughters, Erin, Katie, Jessica, and Tracy, all who have attended Great Valley and graduated from Great Valley. Linda's home, as we've heard throughout lunches or when she would visit in the office, is very busy with her 7 grandsons and 2 granddaughters who continuously stop by to either bake cookies, swim in her pool, or soak in the hot tub, especially now that she's retired. She happily now awaits the birth of her newest grandson later this year. In retirement, Linda and her family look forward to spending time in the sunny Cape Coral, Florida, their getaway home. The whole family enjoys time together there as well as their daughter's home in Avalon. Enjoy retirement, Linda. You deserve it, our first instructional aide, and we know we will miss you at General Wayne. Thank you for everything you did. Come over here. I keep turning around. I know, you don't like spotlight, right? Angie Bone is retiring after 15 years as working as a reading aide at General Wayne. She has been critical in supporting our students in the primary grades learning to read. Angie has worked with Eileen Ant most specifically, and I know Eileen constantly refers to Angie as her right hand in helping students. Angie and her husband Larry have 2 daughters, Christy and Maria, both who also attended and graduated from Great Valley. She and Larry celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary this year. They also have twin granddaughters, Lucine and Karina, who are spending this year with their parents living in France. Angie and Larry visited in March and plan to return to France in September. We were all very sad to hear Angie was retiring, but know that this is a dream of hers, and she will be able to spend some quality time in France with her family. Angie is also part of our book club at General Wayne and enjoys lively discussions. Angie, please enjoy your retirement, your travels with your family and Larry. We appreciate everything you have done to help us grow strong and passionate readers at General Wayne.
Thank you.
Okay. Jane finishes her 17 years as an instructional aide at General Wayne. Yeah, 17?
I thought it was 16.
I don't know, I talked to Cheryl. She's pretty reliable. Jane has served in many roles as an aide, but her most very valuable role was as a special education aide. Jane has touched many lives through her work at General Wayne, but I will always be thankful for her time with a young man who had a physical impairment. Jane was just what he needed, and I will always be thankful for her work with him. Jane, who grew up in Chester County, met her husband Jim, and they both attended Bishop Shanahan together. They married and have had 2 sons, Jack and James. Jane and Jim love to travel and continue to socialize and vacation with many of their Shanahan friends. Jane also is an active member with the University of Pennsylvania Center for Studies of Addiction and supports their fundraising efforts. She is an avid reader and gardener. In her retirement, Jane will continue her work with the University of Pennsylvania, but she also, I think it's important to recognize that she volunteers with Petals Please, a group associated with the Downingtown United Methodist Church, which repurposes flowers from events to make small bouquets and delivers them to local nursing homes, hospices, and senior living communities. And of course, she too also has many wonderful vacations with her husband. I hope you have the best retirement, Jane, and hopefully we will see you at General Wayne again. Thank you for everything you did.
Very nice, Bonnie. Congratulations. If I can have all 4 of you, if you go and take a photo. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone, and greetings from Sugartown. Would Sharon Webster please join me at the podium? All right. There's a saying that I know that many of you have heard before. The more things change, the more they what? Stay the same. Without giving a total explanation of the very context by which this saying is used, our definition tonight will just allude to the many changes that have transpired in education over the last few decades. Yet, still knowing that there are a few things that have remained constant, steady, and predictable along with those changes. From our growing awareness to the developmental needs of human beings to the plethora of new laws and statutes that govern our educational labor of love, our world in schools has shifted quite dramatically in the last few years. However, there are some things that you can always count on, like the rising of the sun in the morning or the chirping of birds during springtime. One of those things comes in the person of Mrs. Sharon Webster, who has remained constant, steady, and positively predictable throughout her years in education. She has remained a constant advocate for positive educational experiences for children, a steady presence for her colleagues that rely on her perspective, good cheer, and sage advice. I've been the recipient of that on a number of days. And a predictable demeanor that isn't afraid to give loving and honest feedback to people in an effort to help them grow professionally, personally, and in a positive manner. Upon deep reflection, I am extremely grateful for the things and people that I can count on, whether it be in leadership or in my personal life. And with that reflection, I am extremely grateful to have known and worked next to Mrs. Webster. Sharon, congratulations on your retirement. This is not a goodbye, but instead, and I'll see you later. Thank you so much for your service.
Very nice. And congratulations. And if you both could head up and we get a picture. Dr. Saunders, if you could just work your way down, please. Do I have to get out the timer? You do, you should. All right.
I just want to say I was a parent of one of Mrs. Webster's children. Many of our teachers taught my children. She was my daughter's third grade teacher, and not only is every word that Kyle shared tonight true, but Sharon also did that for the parents. We are so grateful, or we should be if we're not, I know I am, to have wonderful professionals that have really nurtured and cared for us and our children. And I hate, as much as I love retirements, I hate them because I wish it could all stay forever, but I get it. Sharon, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Sowers, and I have the privilege tonight of not only being the middle school principal, but also have an opportunity to share a few words on behalf of Terry Lazar. So Terry, if you can come up and join me here, that would be great. I have to start out and just ask for some patience and forgiveness in advance. This one was a little hard to write. All right. Tonight I have the privilege just to sit here and share a few words about Terry Lazar. She's endearingly referred to by many close to her as our middle school Nona. If you are not familiar with the Italian side of Miss Lazar, spend a few minutes with her and you'll quickly find out that Nona in Italian endearingly means little grandmother. That is not something short in stature, but more along the lines of all the attributes that she brings to the table. She's just amazing in so many ways. 33 years ago, she began her journey in the field of social work. From her upbringing in Pottstown, her education at Westchester University and Temple, her 42 years of marriage to her husband Tom, raising two wonderful children, Jesse and Alicia, as well as welcoming the blessing of her grandson and another grandchild that will soon be joining the family. Terry's found time through all of this to become a valued and resourceful expert in her field and remarkable member of the middle school faculty. Her time with us began in 2001, and over the years, she has helped countless children, parents, families, teachers, and yes, even administrators. She's approached every situation with a calmness that's envied by those who are fortunate to watch her navigate complex and often emotionally charged situations. I'm sitting here getting kind of choked up. I can't imagine what it's going to be like not having Terry to go to. Just to ask her for those words of advice. And, but boy, I could have used your wisdom today. That's no doubt. Terry's genuine. She looks for the best in everyone. One time, countless times, I watched her take on a heavy burden of what was occurring in the lives of, excuse me, this is for Dr. Fredo. It's only 2 pages, sir. Just saying. I was having a hard time here with my fingers. I apologize. As I said, she's taken on a heavy burden of what was occurring in the lives of others, and sometimes witness her be taken for granted and even treated poorly when all she was attempting to do was help someone in need. So recently I asked her, where did she find her strength? And what she told me is something I'm never going to forget. She said, well, when people are treating you in a cruel and ungrateful manner, please don't be upset or angry, but just take a minute, pause, and ask yourself, what's going on in the lives of that individual that's causing them to treat you that way? And that is something that I will never forget. It is this example of why Terry is going to be missed, and while she'll be missed, she has left us all who have had the privilege of working with her with numerous examples of how we can use our time to carry on her message of hope, kindness, and love for our students, families, and one another. And in closing, I really can't remember where this came from, but I want to give credit to someone else who's much wiser and probably much before my time, but I thought it was so fitting to wrap up who Terry Lazar is and how she has impacted so many people during her tenure at Great Valley. So everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience who you really are. For each and every individual that's had the privilege and honor to work alongside Terry, I can sincerely share that everyone knows who Terry Lazar truly is. And that is a compassionate, honest, caring individual who has and will continue to make a positive impact on those fortunate to listen and follow the wisdom of our own Nona. Thank you, Terry. You're welcome.
And then Jen's going to get a picture of you all up there, so.
I got you.
Good evening. I'm Heidi Capitola, principal of Great Valley High School, and with me are Pat Connors and Henry McCluskey, our assistant principals. We would like our 3 retirees to join us, please. Peggy Kerr, Karen Lewis, and Russ Wren. We're going to go in alphabetical order, so Peggy, you can stay with me. It's my honor to share a few words about our retiring special education teacher, Peggy Kerr. Peggy's career in education spans 37 years. She began in a county-run school in Ohio teaching mostly Amish students with disabilities. After earning a graduate degree at Ohio State University, she taught at Melmark Home and the Child Development Center at the CCIU, before being placed at Great Valley High School in 1990 to begin our Life Skills program, one of the first in the state for inclusion. In 1994, she officially became part of the Great Valley family as our learning support teacher. At different points in her career, she coached girls basketball, started a Best Buddies program, co-taught with 11 different teachers, attended 39 proms and 27 graduations, with one more to attend on June 14th. But perhaps the most important and lasting contribution is the positive impact she has had on the lives of the students she has served and the colleagues with whom she has collaborated. Department Chair Heather Kane shared, if there was only one word I had to use to describe Peggy Kerr, it would be selfless. She is so very generous with everyone she encounters. She's always willing to give time or help students and teachers with anything they might need. Colleague Renee Kilpatrick added, Peggy is one of the most caring and generous teachers I have ever met with students and with colleagues. Her positive and friendly personality, infinite patience, flexibility, compassion, empathy, sense of humor, and love for teaching created a classroom environment that was safe, nurturing, and encouraging. It's going to be a huge void in the special ed teaching department when Mrs. Kerr retires, not only for the students, but the teachers that were fortunate to work with her. In addition to the teachers, our students had wonderful memories to share about being in Mrs. Kerr's classroom. Current senior Tim Dyer recalled, one of my favorite memories of Mrs. Kerr was when she was a co-teacher in my algebra class. Mrs. Kerr made math enjoyable for me every day, and I'm a student who really did not like math, and I wasn't good at it, but she made it interesting each and every day and was always supportive. Without her, I don't think I would have been successful. Even alumni reached out. Class of 2017 graduate Ryan Tangway said, one of the best memories I have of Mrs. Kerr is watching her work individually with every single student and the patience and dedication she put into every single student to make sure they succeeded. This is one of the best traits I have ever observed in a teacher. Please join me in thanking Peggy Kerr for her dedicated service and for the lasting positive impact she has made on Great Valley High School.
Happy retirement.
Stay up here with us.
Yep, and then we'll stay, yep.
Good evening. Again, I'm Henry McCluskey. I'm the acting assistant principal at the high school. I have the honor of talking about my love muffin. Come on up here, love muffin.
Okay, Cupcake.
Thank you. Anyone knows Karen Lewis recognizes she's the world's biggest flirt. If you're a male and wearing a nice pair of shoes, watch out. Karen has such an incredible sense of humor and quick wit, along with an infectious laugh and smile. When she turns on the charm, she can make anyone feel that they are the center of the universe. Karen Lewis brought these gifts and made a difference in the Great Valley School District over 21 years ago. Over those years, there have been many examples how she has been a valued employee and an incredible person. One in particular comes to mind, and it was on her 21st birthday. Karen was working the attendance window when Ryan McEnany approached her in his wheelchair adorned with balloons and flowers. He stopped in front of the window, and with his speech-enabled computer, he wished her happy birthday. It was such a beautiful moment that no one in that office could hold back tears. After reflecting on that moment, it reinforced to everyone how Karen has touched the lives of every student, parent, teacher, and administrator. She's treated every student as they were her own kids. She's treated every adult as a lifelong friend. Karen is a person who finds the best in all of us and has a way to make us feel good about ourselves. She is a philanthropist of kindness, caring, love, smiles, and laughter. We should all be striving to be like Karen, since she's the closest thing on earth to be an angel. Karen, thank you for making us the best version of ourselves.
Thank you.
And we're going to miss you. All right? Happy and good luck in the retirement. Love you.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Connors. I'm the assistant principal at the high school. I'd like to introduce Russell Wren, our athletic director.
Still call me Love Muffin.
My speech will be drastically different. Ben Hogan said the most important shot in golf is the next one. On June 27th, Russ Wren will be taking his next shot in his journey as he retires after more than 30 years in education. Russ began his career as a health and physical education teacher at Downingtown. He also held various coaching positions such as head varsity baseball coach, assistant football coach, and also in the community, he held head coach for the Legion team as well. Russ began his career as an athletic administrator here at Great Valley in 2005. And during his tenure, he served as the vice chair of the Chestmont League, the PIAA District 1 Committee, the PIAA District 1 Golf Chairman, the PIAA State Steering Committee for Golf and Sportsmanship. Some accomplishments while Russ was here at Great Valley include numerous Chestmont League championships, PIAA District 1 championships, state championships, both team and individual. We have a handful of athletes that are now competing professionally throughout the top of my head, soccer, basketball, and football. He was instrumental in the turf field projects, the renovation of the weight room, and he's guided our programs to a respected status, not only among the schools around us, but in District 1 and at the state level. Russ plans to spend more time with his family and, of course, playing golf. It's my honor to introduce Russ Wren.
What do you want us?
Wait,
Photo.
You guys are good. Good job.
It's going to take a minute to organize this group. That's all.
I should have made it like bigger.
I do, even when.
You're like,
Lessons learned.
Good job, Jen, good job.
Do I just go? Oh, you can call. Okay.
Introduce yourself too.
Good evening, I'm Joanna Wexler, Director of Pupil Services for the school district. I'd like to welcome Carolyn Shoemaker up to the front. Carolyn is one of our special education supervisors for Great Valley for the school district. She works primarily at the elementary level, so it's my pleasure to speak on her behalf tonight as we send her off into retirement. Carolyn began her career in education in 1978 in Maryland. She has taught at the preschool and kindergarten levels and substitute taught at all levels. When she moved to Pennsylvania, she taught at the high school level in Twin Valley School District. And her call for leadership began at Twin Valley, where she assumed the role of department chair and later as a special education supervisor. In Twin Valley, she was highly involved in inclusion initiatives and brought that work to Great Valley when she became a supervisor here in 2009. So I have to say, in our time together here in the past 5 years, Carolyn has been very instrumental in bringing our multiple disability support class into the district and building our autism support programs at the elementary level, and we're very appreciative of that. And for those of you that know her well, perhaps outside of work, you may be aware of her fun-loving, thrill-seeking style. I learned that she spent time volunteering for people-to-people trips at some point in her career where she would accompany students to other countries to experience different cultures. And I understand that many of us like to say she enjoys a good adventure, so more to come on that in a few moments. But when I ask her colleagues about her, they describe her as patient, honest, student-centered, and highly collaborative, even in the most difficult circumstances. Sometimes we have those in our department every once in a while. She is humble and always looking to build up others, and in addition, she's extremely thoughtful. She will always take time from her day to recognize the need for personal support to a colleague. And I know in our department, Carolyn is always willing to jump in and lend a hand, always. So we are very thankful for that, and we will miss that. My favorite quotes from a colleague in our administrative department is that she focuses on helping students be successful for who they are. And I think that personally really resonated with me in knowing her over the past 5 years. And I think many of our staff and students and families will deeply miss that compassionate way. And then lastly, Carolyn is known to be the rock of her family. She is a wife, a mother to 2 daughters, and the grandmother of 3 wonderful grandchildren. And while we are going to miss her, we're excited to welcome into some new adventures where her daughter has recently relocated to Singapore with a very beloved grandchild. So we know that she's very excited to spend some really good time with her family and friends and won't be tied down. So it's wonderful. So we just want to thank Carolyn for her services to all of our students and families and to the special education department. Thank you. We will miss you.
Okay? Yeah, you're in it too.
I get the incredible pleasure, I'm Regina Speaker Polubinski, very proud to be the superintendent of Great Valley School District. And this is very, very difficult. And I speak a lot about a lot. But I have been looking at an app on an iPhone now for hundreds of days with the countdown to Mr. Chuck Linderman's retirement. Yes. And I have to say, one of Chuck's famous quotes is, "It's just math." So in the spirit of math, Chuck has survived 4 superintendents, 5. Jury's still out on number 5. 72 board members and 38 years of service to the Great Valley School District. That's I was given very strict orders by Dr. Goffredo to limit my comments, but I just need to make very clear that 38 years and math, one time in your life, Chuck, does not capture even a little bit of my feelings toward you. In that 38 years, people have depended on Chuck throughout our district for a lot. And I know people in this audience have reached out to Chuck to get advice, to get direction, and he never hesitates to provide support to everyone, whether they're a student, a colleague, a staff member, a parent, cafeteria workers, custodians, maintenance men. Anyone in this district has made a friend in Chuck. And I have to say, in that 38 years, the snippet of time that I've been with Chuck, it's not doing the budget presentations and crunching numbers and talking about math, but it truly is those crazy adventures and on snow days when I was sliding all over the place and meeting the custodians and the maintenance men for breakfast just to say thank you, because it's those things that made those 38 years impactful for all of us. My first conversation with Chuck Linderman was in his car on the day after I was hired, where I told him, "You better not go anywhere until I go." And he said very confidently, "Have no fear." I'm not on the retirement agenda this evening. That said, I do not watch this show, but there are 2 things I'd like to share when I think about Chuck. It's been shared with me that there is a very popular show that shows that Chuck is very passionate about. And there is a character in the show, the 3-eyed raven. That, when thinking about that character, really encapsulates Chuck, the ability to know the past. We may be seeing Chuck as the Great Valley historian found downstairs in the basement. He knows the past, he lives the future, and he helps us to the next step. Being 1.4 miles away from this office, we will certainly be tapping into his history, his present, and his future. And as of his wife, Diane, and daughter, Abby, Luke is not here, I don't believe. But they've shared with me he has a shirt that he smokes cigars and knows stuff. I can say I'm really glad you know stuff, Chuck. And I thank you for sharing that stuff with us.
It is about math, and he just reminded me it's actually 40 years because he drove the school bus for 2 years prior to the business office. I apologize.
Thank you, everyone, for the kind words and the recognition. I did, as I stated earlier, we had some individuals who were unable to attend. I certainly want to have their names and positions with the district. Unfortunately, those retirees weren't able to join us tonight. But again, a round of applause for all of our retirees and their service to the district. Okay. All right. All done. Thank you very much, Mr. Barrett.
All right, we're going to move on to student recognition predominantly. First up is the Chester County Science Competition. And
Hello again. It gives me great honor to introduce two high school students that attended the 31st Annual Chester County Science Research Competition, where over 500 students also competed. Freshman Prithvi Partha Sarurthy finished first in the environmental science category. Prithvi also received a Harrisburg University scholarship at the Delaware Valley Science Fair as well. Junior Kevin Groh finished first in medicine and health at the Chester County Science Research Competition. And Kevin also received a special award from the Delaware Valley Science Fair, where he earned the Society for In Vitro Award and a Harrisburg University scholarship as well.
You want to do all of them? Okay. Well, I'm going to jump in there. I'm sorry I was a little slow on the uptake there. I was waiting for pictures to be snapped. Okay, we have some sixth, 7th, and 8th graders who also did extremely well at the Chester County Science Research Competition. I'd like to start with our two students from 6th grade. We have Isabella Acker, who placed 3rd in consumer science. I think I saw Charlie here. Charlie Ruckius also placed 3rd place, but earned the Great Ideas in Botany Award in the category of botany. Congratulations, Charlie. We have a 2nd place for one of our 7th graders, Brighton Risch, for the category of behavioral science. Brighton, can you come on up? And we have two 8th grade teams. The first of Krish Mendarata and Revant Mendarata earned 2nd place in the team category. And Suhani Mathur and Nithya Muli placed 3rd in the team category as well. So if you could come up, that would be great.
Their parents are welcome as well.
My name is Pete Ruckelhaus. I'm the Great Valley Middle School Robotics Club mentor. For those of you who don't know, robotics is kind of an up-and-coming thing, definitely. To me, it's really one of those areas in middle school where kids can put their thinking and their action into use, where many people have to wait until they're adults out of college to be able to do that. And they're doing some really incredible things. Not only does robotics teach a lot about the STEM areas, but it also does something that I think is even more important for a lot of kids, and that's really helping them with soft skills, sportsmanship, problem solving, communication, conflict resolution, and that sort of thing. And I think it's a great program. We're recognizing 2 of our teams this year, tonight. First of all, we have team 7517H. 7517 is our club number, and we have 10 teams. This is Team H. They were actually the winners of the Excellence Award at the Pennsylvania State Robotics Competition in Norristown back in March. The Excellence Award is awarded to the robotics program at the competition that displays the most consistently excellent competition results, planning, construction of the robot and everything. And it's actually the highest award that there is in VEX robotics competition. So obviously I'm pretty proud of these guys. So we have 8th grade students, Aditya Pola, Arnav Roy, and Dylan Zhu, and 7th grader Savar Amin. Okay. We traveled to Kentucky last month. They flew. I drove a van, which was okay because that way nobody else had control of the radio. Where they actually did quite well, and they had a record of 4 wins and 7 losses, which might sound like it's not great, but there were actually 3 matches that really could have gone either way. So let's give them a round of applause. Also at the state competition, we had one of our 2 all-girl teams, Team 7517F, who were the recipient of the Sportsmanship Award. Again, sportsmanship is a huge part of VEX Robotics. A lot of these kids aren't the kids who are going to be inclined to be on the sports field or on the court or on the track, learning sportsmanship and cheering each other on and being gracious in defeat as well as in victory. And they've exhibited these traits throughout the season, and again, I'm incredibly proud of them. We have 8th grade students, Erica Crane and Emma Vasosky, and we have 6th grade students, Veronica Marinova and Avery Pendergast.
Hi, good evening. I'm here to recognize the Great Valley High School Model United Nations Club. So anyone who is here, if you guys could come over here. we can get it a little bit easier. We'll try to organize really quick. Have people get in the order of awards. We'll start with position paper, so try to pass that around. Okay, our organization has been growing for many years, and this, in particular, senior class has done a tremendous amount of work in building the club to be a regional and state recognized organization. We have 127 members in the Model United Nations Club this year, which is the largest number we've ever had. This year at the Philadelphia Model United Nations Conference in the first week of March, we had our most successful performance on the individual level. We had 25 students that received individual awards, which was substantially more than any other school that was there, and we were recognized as the outstanding large delegation for that. We have a number of members that are here. There are 5 different types of awards that are given. A position paper award, which represents research, and we had 6 students that were recognized for that. Lucy Zhang, Ganesh Gupta, Kenneth Yang, Brian Yuen, Nandini Krishnan, and Tanya Kalyanda. So Nandini is here, so if you would like to head up, Nandini. Another award is for the most improved delegation, which really represents the growth that happens during one of these conferences. We had another 6 students recognized. Neil Tenaker, Chris Angeloff, and Yushin Jin are not here, but the following students are Naveen Narayanan and Agash Satya Bandari, who both received that award, as well as Akshitha Viswandalula. Congratulations, guys. The Distinguished Delegation Award went to 4 of our students, Lucas Armand and Tyler Wassel, who aren't here, but 2 that are, Claire Reeser and Jackson Mishler. For Outstanding Delegation, the top 2 positions are Outstanding Delegation and Best Delegation. The Outstanding Delegation, we had 2 recipients, Ria Kenny and Ria Kokangata. Congratulations, ladies. And really, what stands out when you deal with best delegations, there were 12 different groups. 7 of our students received the Best Delegation Award. Arunita and Divya Sama. Dabaran Day and also Heidi Atlas that are here tonight. And I went out of order. Noah Harringen, Rithik Bobili, and Avani Kavakathar also were awarded the Best Delegation Award. So thank you very much. Sure. I'll leave that up.
good evening again, and it gives me great pleasure to ask Mrs. Ann McCrory up here to the podium. As many of you know, Mrs. McCrory was a county finalist for the Citadel Heart of Learning Award, which is a very prestigious award given in this area and many other areas for teachers who showed distinguished and honorable service within the classroom. So just a few words about Ann. You know, doing the good work in the light is a very honorable thing. Many labors can be highlighted and hopefully replicated amongst all those who watch the Good Samaritan, citizen, and in this case, teacher, go about their daily duties. We often wonder how those we watch can be so decent that they are willingly giving of their own time, energy, and emotion, even to the detriment, at times, of their own families, friends, and loved ones. Indeed, doing the great work in the limelight has benefits for all of us, for those that are watching and those that directly benefit. However, you might find that when the lights are off, there are often fewer people around to do the good work. Unfortunately, some perform duties beyond their responsibility only when the lights are on. Indeed, it takes a special kind of heart and spirit to do the good work when there is no one else around. These individuals labor in the dark, only caring about those being served by their efforts. Ann McCrory is one of those people that cares so deeply about others, she labors in the dark. And if you're still around on the workday, say at about 5:30 p.m. or so, she is still in her room or about the school, laboring, often alone, in the dark. This is of the highest testament. Thank you, Ann, for your service to others, especially away from the limelight. And as I always tell her, we see you. Congratulations once again on your recognition as a Citadel Heart of Learning Award finalist. Congratulations.
All right, Sugartown.
Should I just wait for some people to leave? Yeah. Should I just wait for people to leave? Hi. Hi. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for inviting us back so thank you.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
You gotta sit through all this.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Briner. I'm in the 5th grade at Sugartown, and I'm the student council president. When I was in 3rd grade, the first year I was on student council, I wanted to be on student council because when our teacher gave us a short definition of what we would be doing if we ran and made it, it just sounded like something really cool, and I wanted to be part of that. And now, over the past 3 years of being on student council, I've gotten to do more than I could have imagined. And it's just really fun, and it makes you feel really good about yourself when you're able to work with people really nice. So student council constantly is in helping Sugartown, but one I feel that I noticed tremendously is by teaching the students in Sugartown that they have a voice and that they can do good deeds. And we do so by having fundraisers and giving them opportunities to make donations and just help others in need in the community. Today with me, we have our amazing Vice President Grace Colvin and our Treasurer Francis Foy. The three of us today will be just informing you of what Sugartown's done so far since we have last been here. To start off, we've had 2 major fundraisers. We had one for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, where we raised over $750 by having classes go against each other to raise the most money. And we also had a fundraiser for the American Heart Association called Penny Wars, where it was grade versus grade to raised the most money, and with that, over $1,200 were raised, later donated to the American Heart Association. Another thing that Student Council organized was National Make a Friend Day. So National Make a Friend Day in schools' purpose is to pretty much help students make friends within their class and grade. But what Student Council decided to do was give each class a new buddy class, and through this exercise, hopefully giving students the opportunity to make more friends throughout the entire school. One club that Student Council isn't in charge of, but Sugartown does have, is called Envirothon, and Envirothon is a chance for students to get together once a month, I'm pretty sure, and learn about plants, animals, and just other parts of the earth, and then go to an all-day competition and activity where they get to compete. Next up is our Vice President, Grace Colvin, to tell you more about what Sugartown Student Council is doing.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hi, my name is Grace Colvin, and I'm Sugartown's Vice President for Student Council. One of the many fun activities that Sugartown has been doing this year is called Technology Club, aka Tech Club. Tech Club is open for any 5th grader who wants to learn more about coding, building websites, typing, and more. Students really love it and are always excited to show their classes what they learned. Tech Club is before schools on Wednesdays, and 5th graders bring their iPads to the classes so they can learn. In February, Sugartown did a pencilgram fundraiser where we sold Valentine's Day pencils and students made a note to go with it. Later that week, Student Council reps and PTO people delivered them to the classrooms, and students really enjoyed it because it felt special when you get a special note from someone. We raised over $100 to go to school from that fundraiser. This year, Sugartown did a spelling bee for their own. It was won by Mason O'Connor in 4th grade. They moved on to go to the county spelling bee. And I would introduce Fiona Davis, but she's not here, so instead I'm going to introduce Frances Foy.
Hello, my name is Frances Foy, and I'm going to speak for our Secretary, Fiona Davis, who is not here today. We just had the Sugartown Philly Proud Spring Fair. We were very excited for the Philly Proud Spring Fair because we had a pitch burst similar to a dunk tank to raise money for our school. People try to pop water balloons over the heads of the Student Council reps. It is so much fun to raise money for our wonderful school. We all continue to look forward to help our school and to show our amazing school spirit. We dress up for Dr. Seuss Day in March at our school and come back to school that evening to hear the teachers read Dr. Seuss stories to us. We enjoyed stories in our pajamas. Oh, I almost forgot the milk and cookies. They were delicious. Hello, my name is Frances Foy, and I'm in 4th grade at Sugartown. As treasurer, I'm in charge of the finances and what we do with the money we raise from our fundraisers. So far this year, the total amount of money earned is over $300 from our various lunchtime activities. We either donate the money to a charity and help Sugartown families in need, or use the money to buy something for our school. In March, Sugartown put on a great musical titled The Return of the Glass Slipper. 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students signed up to participate in it. There was a school assembly to showcase the show for all the students, and there was also a nighttime show for parents. Both shows were a big hit. Student Council has been very busy this year, like always, and has been fun to be a part of. Thank you for listening to Student Council from Sugartown Elementary.
All right, thank you guys very much. And if you want to grab your parents and leave, I know it's getting late. All right, next up is the high school.
Hello.
How many days? Not many, right?
25.
25.
9 days left of classes.
So who's counting?
Exactly. So this weekend was senior prom, and it was a great success and a lot of fun for all of us who were there. And the boys tennis team showed up with their new state championship award, which was really exciting. And this week is going to be super busy at the high school with the Keystone exams
on Tuesday and Wednesday, and several upcoming concerts. The band concert is tomorrow, and the choir and orchestra concerts are next week. Also, the Spring Arts Festival is this Thursday at 7 p.m., so that's a really great chance to come out and look at all the art that all of the high schoolers have made this year, and it's always really fun, so we'll look forward to that.
All right, thank you. All righty. My computer's slow. Secretary's correspondence.
Yes, just one thing, a little sad note. Last week, we had the passing of one of our former secretaries in the district office, Mary Brown. You may know her. She, a longtime Great Valley resident, lived over in Stonehenge. She was secretary in our maintenance department from, should have had this number, but I think it's 1971. She wasn't the first maintenance secretary, she was second. From 1971 through about 1989, because I had the privilege of working with her for 8 years. And then for the next 30 years, she volunteered for us. For the past several years, she hung out at the senior center. She was just at the senior center week before last. She always stopped in to see Linda and I to see what was going on, but very sad. She would have been 95 in June. A couple years ago, one of the former custodians were in my office, and I brought her over to say hi to him because he had retired and she worked there. And I accidentally said I said, Bruce, this is, remember Mary? Oh yeah, Mary, how you doing? Mary? Yeah, I said, Mary's 92. And Mary said, I'm 93. That was at the time. So she was pretty proud of her age, but it was very sad. So sorry. And I actually drug your announcement of executive session down to where it should be. So, on your thing, it's not there, so.
All right, IU report?
That would be me. So the board concluded the work of making a decision about an executive director this past Saturday. The work has been done. The board has made a choice. The person and the terms will be disclosed once the terms are set, so we're very close to being able to disclose that. Secondly, we did meet with our monthly meeting last Wednesday. I want to thank our superintendent, Regina. I really appreciate, this has been a difficult process with the search only because it's taken an unbelievable amount of time and effort. And I learned just how much I didn't know. And I have utilized the superintendent and her staff to bring me along and give me the nuts and bolts that I really need to be able to do this job. So at our meeting on Wednesday, the marketplace budget was passed unanimously. I did vote for the budget with a caveat. I understand that I really need, as does all of my colleagues there, a lot more information to ever be able to pass another budget. The reason that I did pass it was because the only goal that the board had going into budget season was to budget within Act 1, and they certainly did do that. The increase in the marketplace came in at about 1.4%, as opposed to Act 1. So since they were true to that, I did vote for it, but I did disclose in public to all my colleagues that the board needs to do the work and understand the workings of this organization enough to be able to push back on this budget the same way we all do in our home districts. In addition, I think, made a little headway as the board agreed to allow the staff to survey our member districts. So each superintendent will be receiving a survey from the CCIU, a satisfaction survey as to what we need, what the CCIU could be doing better, and strengthening partnerships all around. So it was a wonderful experience searching for the executive director. I'm glad that that's over. It took an incredible amount of time. And also, I'm happy to have, I really consider myself having grown with the knowledge that I've had to assume to learn this organization and this budget enough to even know what I need to know for next year. So there'll be a lot more to come. And as it unfolds, I think that it's definitely, we're moving in the right direction to be able to strengthen partnerships between each school district and the CCIU. And that's what I think the mission of the CCIU should be. So thank you for that, and that's all I have to say. If any, I am recommending, for the same reason that I approved the budget on my level, I'm recommending that we do it. But again, this is the last time, and I was very affirmative. Great Valley will not approve this budget unless their CCIU rep, which hopefully will be me. If I win my reelection, it will continue to be me, but we need a lot more information before we can approve it. And I'm hoping that the goals, as we've just started budget process for the next year, I hope we're going to have much better goals than to just increase within the Act 1 index.
Ellen, is there anything in particular that you have your eye on, or that we should have our eye on in terms of what you're looking for with additional information?
It's actually comes down to Amy's structure. So the way the marketplace budget is structured, purchasers, which are not only our school districts, our member districts, but they can be people outside of the county, you buy a la carte services out of that offering book. It's just a matter of understanding that, and you know, it was educational. I asked several questions Wednesday night, and the rest of the board was also educated. So we all pay for those services, plus we pay an administrative fee. So the structure is that if we sold outside of the county, we follow the model where it could be advantageous to do that for our member districts. We could lower some of our expenses. I think we just need a better handle on what our member districts, which is all 12 of us, need, and then coming up with a product that's affordable. Because, you know, we've 86,000 children in this county, and I want to do better for our children in this county. I want all of the children in this county to have the same access to all of our phenomenal programs. And in order for that to happen, they have to be affordable. So I think that, especially in light of, there's going to be some changes made there. It's not that, I don't think there's anything that has to be unturned. I think that we all need a better understanding. All 12 member districts that sit on that board need a better understanding of what goes into the nuts and bolts. And then we know how to strengthen partnerships. So it's all about what our districts are letting them know what we need. And I want the superior products that we have made accessible to every child in this county, and they have to be affordable for districts in order for that to happen. So that's where I want to see this, headed. And I'm, you know, like I said, if I'm lucky enough to continue to do the job, I think there's support on the CCIU board to actually have that pushed forward. Anybody? Are we good?
Sounds good. Keep pushing.
Legislative report.
Legislative report, there's a good bit happening in Harrisburg right now. The state has 17 more sessions before the end of June. The Senate has 14. As far as the governor's budget goes, the legislators in both caucuses are optimistic that the state budget will be passed on or before June 30th, which should be pretty miraculous. The hot topics that are remaining that are some sticking points for folks are the proposed minimum teacher salary of $45,000, the decrease in safe schools competitive grant funding, and the flat funding of transportation. So just to unpack that a little bit, basic education fund is going to be increased per the governor's budget by $200 million. 166 of that would be driven back through the basic education formula, and 50 million increase for special education, which is a nice significant support in that. Some other line items are 8 million targeted to charter schools for the Ready to Learn program. All other of that is rolled back into the basic education funding. Funding for career and technical education, not a lot of increase as far as that goes for K through 12. It's a fairly level funded formula for that. A $50 million increase in early childhood education, which is a huge benefit as it rolls up to all the public school districts. And a $50 million increase for early intervention. Again, more money funneled towards early ed and early intervention allows districts to have students who are well prepared when they do matriculate. It's 5-year-olds. Safety and security, a $45 million funding for this. It's a $15 million increase from last year, so that's fantastic. But transportation is flat. Schools right now are, on average, $120 million short of current school in this current school year. So that's a big consideration as schools are looking at their budgets. Some other components of the governor's budget are changing the student attendance compulsive education from 8 to 6 years old. I don't think a whole lot of us knew that you did not have. Pardon me?
They kept it quiet.
Yeah, they kept it very quiet. That 8 was the mandatory age to start public education, but they're lowering that to 6 years old. And they're calling for a study to look at the impact of lowering the age further to 5 years old, which would potentially impact providing full-day kindergarten across the state. So it's nice to be ahead of the curve on these things. There are a few other things that are going on. The House education legislation, a couple bills that are of note are the articulation agreements to expand an established database allows students and potential students to plan where courses and programs, certificates and diplomas can transfer among public schools and schools of higher institution. So that allows, what credits you might have in one public school if you go to a different one, what's your match? And then what if you take some dual enrollment courses, how do they match up with what colleges are providing? Workforce information. The bill would require PA Department of Education to develop materials outlining workforce needs. Not only today, but coming up in the future, that include training opportunities and future earning potential. School entities will allow for community colleges and other technical and/or trade schools to attend college and career fairs. So that was passed in the House and has been referred to the Senate. There's a bill, House Bill 334 on agricultural education. I think that's something that's really a bit more germane to other portions of the state. But career resources, creating an online repository for career resources was passed in the House and referred to the Senate. There are a lot of other ones, and I'm not going to go through them. Just highlighting the important ones. House Bill 1087, homeschool access to vocational technical education, which I thought was really interesting. Bill would allow for homeschool students who has been accepted to an area VOTEC school to attend that school with or without the district's consent. On the school vehicle light, I think we've all seen, if you spend any time on social media, people posting things of school people passing school buses on the left or the right. And it's especially worrisome for smaller vehicles like vans and minibuses. So they're amending a bill that would authorize the use of revolving or flashing lights on especially the smaller modes of transportation. Retiree mentors. This bill established certified, background checked, vetted list of volunteers who would be willing to share their life lessons, experiences, and hobbies with junior and senior high school students interested in enhancing their knowledge and skill sets. And there'd be an online repository of that. So if there was a teacher who wanted somebody who was in agriculture, agronomy, economics, whatever, there'd be a repository that you could reach out to those certified, approved mentors so that they don't have to go through a whole vetting process and, getting certified to come into the schools. A financial literacy course. This is really interesting. Starting at the end of, okay, let me just read it so I don't mess it up here. Amends a public school code providing that beginning with students graduating from a public high school at the end of the 2019-2020 school year, continuing in each school year thereafter, students successfully completes a course in personal financial literacy during grades 9 through 12, shall be permitted to apply up to 1 credit earned for successful completion of the course to satisfy the student's social studies, family and consumer science, mathematics, or business education requirement. So that's really making school practical for students. They're looking at increasing, in House Bill 800, increasing various thresholds for EITC, which is the Earned Income Tax Credit that businesses can receive tax credit for when they make a contribution directly to a K-12 for either scholarship or educational expansion opportunities. And House Bill Senate Bill 115 requires the PDE and Department of Health to develop a model curriculum and guidelines for CPR instruction. Senate Bill 440 is looking at flexible instruction days. Codifies the pilot flexible instruction days program into law, allowing school districts to continue to receive approval from the PDE to utilize flexible instruction days and to get credit for canceled school days. So that's been the first and second consideration. It's been referred to the Senate appropriation, meaning that if there's a school day, if there's a natural disaster, if there's flooding or what have you, that online curriculum can be provided. Students, if they have the ability, can have flexible learning during those days and still not have to make those days up. And I think they're working out all those possible little things. Some interesting things with charter school legislation are going on. I'm not going to go through all of them, but one that was interesting to me was one proposed piece of legislation that prohibits payments to charter schools unless they adopt a budget that includes an unreserved fund balance of less than 5% of the total fund expenditures. So that's just some bills up for consideration. The one big thing that is really bouncing around up in Harrisburg is the whole notion of property tax reform. And that Senate Bill 76, personal income tax, what would happen was they would eliminate property taxes and rely on an increase in personal income tax from 3.07 to 4.95%, increase sales tax from 6 to 7%, and expanded what is covered by sales tax. So it wouldn't necessarily just be haircuts and things that you buy here and there. It would include taxing childcare. It would include taxing other medical things, assisted living, those sorts of things. There'd be a tax placed on those things. So right now, just to give you a little bit of background, Pennsylvania provides 38% of public education funding. There are only 5 states that provide less. The majority of states provide a lot more money for public education. Property taxes generate $13 billion for K-12 education. So right now, there's a lot of debate around this. it's something that has a lot of supporters and a lot of detractors. Right now, they're looking at the full elimination of property taxes is 5 to 6 votes short in the House and the Senate. People are concerned that if you take the direction of the funds away from the local entity, you're putting the money in the state's hands to say, parse it out wherever you think it should go. Doesn't matter how well the school performs, doesn't matter how well or how much need there is. It's controlled outside of this locality. So that's just kind of keeping everybody in the loop with that. There's a bill that would, along with this, free school property taxes on the primary residence of older Pennsylvania citizens in case the school, the property tax elimination does not go through. If they say, we're going to keep property tax, there's a bill that would back up older Pennsylvanians and not allow the property tax to be increased for them from the time that this would pass. And that's about it. So there's a lot going on. It will be a busy June for the Senate and the House, and I look forward to reporting back. Any questions?
Mary, I have a question. So what's the payout going to be based on? Are they going to remit back to all the school districts all the additional personal taxes for each person that lives in every school district area?
That's the question. Nobody knows.
Okay.
That's
okay.
being held very, very close to the vest, and that's the big concern with people because there is no matrix for that yet.
Yeah, it concerns me too, but thank you. You did a great job on that.
Thanks, Mary. I just wanted to add, I was in Harrisburg with the superintendent a few weeks ago at the Pennsylvania School Board Association Advocacy Day, where they invite school board members from across the state to come meet with legislators and speak on specific issues. And one issue related to charter schools that they had as one of the focuses, they usually have 3 different issues of the day, was related to cyber charter school funding.
Yes.
They were really, PSBA feels strongly that school districts are paying too much for cyber charters, and that they should, it shouldn't be the same as a physical building that gets, as far as what school districts pay. So I was wondering if there's any update. That was only a month ago,
Right,
but.
you're right, and so that's one that I just kind of didn't include. But what they're talking about is that for cyber charter school, if you live in a district that has online offerings through your own district charter or cyber charter school, that the parents will not be reimbursed to go outside of the district, that you must stay within your district to eliminate some of the costs that are burdened by, shouldered by the school districts.
Thank you,
Did
yeah.
that answer your
Yeah, it
question?
did, it did.
Okay.
I just don't know where they are on it.
Yeah.
And I know those things take a while because there are many districts that have an IU that has great online education and, yeah, wonderful.
I think the problem with all those proposals that you went through is the devils in those details of how do you allocate money? How do you decide what's in district, what's out of district, et cetera? And that's
And I think a lot of funds, trust us, we'll figure it out.
exactly.
So.
All righty. Any other reports? Yes, so we're on the right.
I'll give a Foundation of Great Valley update. I sat through a board meeting, I guess it was last week, where they reviewed with the board their revised grant, venture grant program. A lot of really interesting changes happening with the program. I'll just read down the list so I don't miss them. The new plan will facilitate better communication between the foundation and applicants, shorten the approval cycle so that grants can be implemented in the same school year. That's a big, big, big one. And not just within the same school year, but at a velocity that is much quicker than they've been able to accomplish in the past. Funded grants will be advertised during annual campaign to boost donor participation. It's a great way to connect the ask of the community to participate with what the community will benefit from investing in. Allow all applicants to be evaluated using the same criteria. They're talking about a new rubric that should help guide both the granting of and the understanding of what will be approved from grant applicants. Working with the Great Valley School District Technology Department to digitize forms that will modernize the application process, far less manual. That's all part of what's speeding up the process. And they're making the rounds, presenting the revised program to all faculty and principals in hopes that increasing awareness of the grant program and the intent to make it easier to be a part of will increase participation with the program over time, which is great for everybody, great for students, great for teachers, and gives us a great story to tell to the community. The foundation is also working through a strategic and branding rebrand, so to speak. They're working with some high school design teams to help work on some of the visual applications of the foundation. That's a great way to bring real life application to life for students. Working on an improved social media presence, and are working on a brand reveal ahead of next school year. While they're working through this rebrand, they're also thinking through some new board members. And so I sort of put this out to my board colleagues and anybody in the community that might be listening. If you or someone you know is inclined to get more involved with the foundation, there's lots of opportunities to participate either as a board member to help drive strategy and engagement with the community, or even on a committee just to help more boots on the ground, hands, pens to paper to help get the great work of the foundation done. So that's that. Thank you. And I thought there was one more thing. Their golf outing went today, the annual golf outing. The weather cooperated. It's like the nicest Monday of the spring season. So I think we're all still awaiting who won. I think there was an alumni cup that was pretty heavily contested, but I guess we'll hear about.
I did
you
hear, yes. Our own Cheryl Worley, her son was on a team of alum, and it was her son and two other of his childhood friends from Great Valley School District, and as she said, an outsider. They won and did very well and were incredibly excited, so they were passing around pictures of the cup.
So Amy, they've really seemed to do quite a bit in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think this is the fruits of a few years' worth of labor starting to come to fruition. I think there is an acknowledgement that there's a lot of opportunity available to connect the community with our students and our teachers and our district. And there's a lot of passion around capitalizing on that opportunity.
So PASBO was helpful.
PASBO has been helpful, but that is sort of separate from the updates that I'm even talking about here. PASBO is helping the foundation set a really longer-term strategic vision for who to be and how to be it. This is really more in-house, like I said, stuff that I've been tangentially and in the past year and a half more officially affiliated with the foundation. And this is work that I know has been talked about for years now. Making the grant process easier, making sure teachers know how to apply for them, that we're making it just as darn easy as possible to apply and get the money for these grants to bring these opportunities into classrooms for students.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other reports? All right, budget. Or superintendent's report, not sure who's.
Yes,
doing
under
what.
superintendent's report, and Mr. Linderman will provide, as was requested, the discussion about the different proposals for the debt reserve.
Just one slide. Hold your applause.
It's just math.
It's just math. So the column on the very left is our current millage and what our average residential assessment is, the average tax bill. I always show our median assessment because our average tax bill is kind of artificially high because some of the very larger properties that are in the district kind of inflate that. The median assessment is that number right in the middle. When if you have 10 or if you have 11 numbers, it would be number 6. So this is, when you're counting, so we have 12,000 numbers. The median number is number 6,000. Actually, pretty darn close to 2/3 of our assessments are less than the average assessment. So that's, if you work math, you know that what that means. So column 2 is the 2019-20 budget, the way it stands now with the $1 million debt reserve. So the millage is 21.55. The average tax bill goes up about $62. The median tax bill goes up about $53. If you were to increase that to $1.5 million in a debt reserve, the average tax bill goes up to $93, or an increase of $31, and the median tax bill goes up to $80, or an increase in $27. Put in the very right, if you did the 2019-20 budget without a debt reserve, you're at zero. So I didn't put a column there because zero is zero. Discuss amongst yourselves.
Chuck, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. It's really helpful to see that, especially on one slide, and to understand that if we go forward as we've looked at to date, with putting $1 million aside to help us with future building, that results in an average of $62 increase. Tell me if I got it wrong, right? I think I got it right on the one slide. And then if we were to go with $1.5 million, that would be $93, so a $31 difference on average. So it doesn't seem huge, and to me, it seems fiscally prudent to put more aside while we can, but at the same time, I clearly understand that we have homeowners here who, in our community, that we need to be mindful of, and that any increase is an increase. And so I'm interested to hear what other board members feel. Again, I feel like on one side, this is fiscally prudent, but on the other side, I want to be very mindful of our community and their needs. And so I'm a little torn, and I'm interested to hear what others have to say.
I'd love to throw a question out in that vein and make sure I understand, my understanding is correct. We are essentially talking about asking taxpayers to contribute now, or asking taxpayers to contribute later with additional interest payments essentially assigned to those contributions. Am I oversimplifying?
No, that's, there's a couple of things, and Chuck can correct me when I'm wrong with the math. One of it is, yes, you will have additional interest payments, because what we would, if you started building up the tax and the savings now, if you need to borrow $100 million in a few years, and you have whatever it is, $6 million set aside, now you need less money to borrow, which in turn translates into less interest payments down the road, right? And that's an oversimplification, and it may not be $100, I mean $100 million. And the other thing is to keep in mind that if you try to do all the tax increase at once, you may not have the ability to do that also with the Act 1 index that could cap you down the road. So it's impossible, it may be impossible to say, we'll just put it off until we borrow the money in 4 years from now, and then can't do a 4% price or tax increase because the Act 1 index is 2.2%, right? So now you either have to go for the exceptions or go for a referendum.
But beyond that, even before we start talking about Act 1 and referendum, if I know that I want to buy a car and that car costs me $10,000 and I have no money saved today, that car is going to cost me $10,000 plus whatever my borrowing costs are for that car down the road. If I can save $1,000 toward that car every year between now and 3 years from now when I need it, I only need to borrow $7,000, so I have lower borrowing costs because it's a lower borrowing number. And it's still my money that I didn't spend the money that I saved. I put it in an account to buy my car with.
Yeah, but you're also anticipating you'll need that car in 3 years. You may not need it in 3. We don't know what the answer is going to be yet.
Agreed, but again,
I mean, those are the variables that are
Absolutely,
on
and-
why that becomes it's not black and white what the answer
it's
is.
a fraction of the payment,
Right.
not the full sum.
Right.
Just making sure I'm
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of boiling down the spirit of what we're talking about
Yeah.
into its most basic terms.
Amy, I look at it that, I think your analogy of looking at a car, knowing that you've got to save for the future is really spot on with that. But I also look and say, we have nothing back from the feasibility study. We don't know what we need. We don't know if we need a car, if we need a motorcycle. Do we need a bike? Do we not need any mode of transportation because we've got public transportation down the street? I don't know what that is or what that looks like. So that's where my mind is. So
I've really had a struggle with this in a big way, because it all boils down to what are needs. So we have the obligation to provide for the needs of the school district. Our community values say, hey, based on history, they've come and they've supported anytime we've said we need to raise taxes to protect teaching and learning, to protect what we have here. So they want to do that. They do not, and I think it's clear, because a lot of times at budget time, we do have people in the room. They don't want to overpay. They want us to be good stewards of the money. So I've really been going crazy about need and what really should we be doing with tax money? Do we really have the right to tax to protect our financial position 4 or 5 or 6 or maybe never down the road? And here's what hit me over the head and really drove it home for me. So when you look at what our job is to always do what is in the best interest of the children. Back in the day when we did our last bond deals, we didn't have Act 1, so we could tax until the cows came home. We could tax 6% to cover the monthly debt from those bond programs. Prior to Act 1, we could do what we wanted. We don't have that ability now. So the problem with us not putting something away is that in the future, when the feasibility study does come back, and we all know we're going to run out of capacity, we are going to need a building, we just don't know when. So when the results come back, it is not good or in the best interest of our children for us to not prepare for that, because at that point, we will not be able to be doing a budget that is in the best interest of our kids. We will only be able to do a budget with first and foremost to cover our construction debt, and then take care of our teaching and learning. And for me, that is a real problem, and for that reason, it's all come into play. And I really do believe that doing the 1%, doing the other 1.5 million, that takes the tax base to Act 1 in a year when we really don't need any taxes at all to cover teaching and learning. So I think that the 1% or the $1 million that we've instructed Chuck to build in truly is the best thing when it comes to how do we protect what's in the best interest of children and our teaching and learning going forward.
Good discussion. I mean, the bottom line is, we don't have to really decide this until June 3rd, correct?
Which is your next meeting.
I understand.
My second to the last, but you're next.
Just a process question, how will we approach the budget vote? Will it be,
Well, right now, there's a budget out there.
Yep.
There'll be a motion to either approve that budget and second it in, and then either passed or failed, or there might be a motion to change that budget, and then the same thing, as the second, and then a vote to either pass or fail it, so, the motion.
I just for the spirit of preparedness, as you recall, the budget that was presented, if it's not changed, has the million, because that's what we talked about, sort of the middle
Right.
point. So if anyone wants if anyone has the inclination that they may want something different, just so we're prepared, if there's a motion, that we actually have a budget prepared to vote on. I just,
Right, and neither of these budgets will be at the Act 1 index. They'll both be at least 0.5% under the Act 1 index, maybe even more. But so right now, it stands the $1 million is a 1.2% increase. The $1.5 million will be a 1.8% increase if you're looking at percent increases. So I don't want people to think it's the Act 1, we're going to the Act 1 increase. We are not. And just to clarify Mrs. Burrell's comments, we did not just inflate our millage back in the 90s because we could. We did this kind of plan so that we didn't have to do that. We could have done, the board could have done that, yes, then, and just waited, and the year they needed to borrow the $145 million to do the whole project, they could have borrowed it all, and it would have been a 12% tax increase. They would all have been reelected, or not reelected, and we would have probably had buildings stop and everything, but we started very early in the process, and we picked $1 million. We didn't pick higher, because, there's the old adage, you can be a horse, you can be a cow, but don't be a pig. And, we may not need that much. We may need that much. So at a point in time, you'll have to decide. We kind of targeted some numbers based on what Schrader gave us as an estimate for a small building, not a full middle school, not a high school, a kind of medium-sized elementary school, so to speak, which could, in square footage, could deal with a lot of different options, and gave us a number to back into when we looked at this with RBC, which we came up with okay, if you have $3 million in place in 3 years, that should be enough to have your mortgage payment paid then the following year without adding any more, and have a little bit less. So instead of needing $50 million, $40 million, you need, like Dave said, $6 million less. So you would actually be a little better off.
Have we done calculations on how much, if we did go to the 1.5 million, it would end up saving taxpayers down the road? Like when I was in college looking at how much loans to take for school, I had an Excel spreadsheet, and I kind of calculated, okay, if I work and don't take out the loan, I'm paying this amount, and if I do take out the loan, I'm paying this amount plus this amount of interest over this amount of years. And is there any way to get a sense of if we did go to 1.8% and the 1.5 million, how that will affect taxpayers who are, still living 10 or 15 years from now?
Like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could pull something like that out. Obviously, if you have a small increase for 3 years, it's going to be less than a big increase in that year 3.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they say about retirement is, you want to invest while you're young. Like, if you can put the money in when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, it's much better than dumping in a huge amount when you're 65.
Right, you can't, it's hard to catch up.
I mean, I like the fact that when we look at our budget, we look at over years and aren't reactive year to year. My instinct is to be conservative and try to save more, which unfortunately means to tax at a higher rate, because I think that it will pay off down the road, driving down the streets and seeing the rate of growth in this fine community. I think we're pretty sure we're going to need to buy the car. That a motorcycle or bike isn't
Yeah,
going to
it
do a
might not
job.
be a big car, but it'll be a car.
It'll be a car, right.
But
Something.
yeah, if you have a little cloud over my head, I think I can drill that down to one page too.
And then I'd like to know flat out, putting you on the spot, what's your recommendation? Because I'd like to.
Well, our recommendation's $1 million, because we have data for that. To do more, our recommendation based on talking to Schrader is we need $45-50 million for something. For a 100,000 square foot, maybe 85,000 square foot building, which is about the size of a medium-sized elementary school, based on what they just did in Upper Marion, for cost. So, all right, now backwards into that, let's see what, depending what we need. I don't know, we don't know whether that's what that is. If it's not an elementary school, I just use that as an example, but it could be a center of some kind. It could be a different format. Yeah, so it could be 3 wings or 4 wings or 2 wings.
Chuck, can you remind me when we expect to hear back regarding the feasibility study? What the timeline is on that?
No, they're just starting. You're deep into next year till you get any numbers
Okay,
on that, yeah.
So we have
Yeah,
no
you'll
idea
miss
what
this
the
budget
recommendation's
cycle. Our
gonna
goal is to
be.
get you started on
I
this
think
budget.
to one point that we've talked about, and I think just to remind us, that what we choose to do June 3rd does not dictate what we do next year. That's the first point. The next point is, as the feasibility study becomes more realized and we start having conversations and moving forward, nothing is going to change for next year. So the more information we have, the better data we'll have to make the next decision. So as we discussed, when Mike Lillis came out to present, is this the middle of the road either way, it would put us in a position to go more possibly next year, stay the same next year, or less, depending upon the information we receive at that time.
The other thing to keep in mind too is that even once we get our feasibility study, I mean, it doesn't have to be a big bang, right? I mean, it could be a 5-year program that says we add a wing to this building and then a wing to that building and then a wing to that building, right? It doesn't necessarily, depends what it is, right? Obviously, if it's build a new building, that's a bigger bang, but until we have that
Right, and
study.
it could be longer term than that. I mean, I'm helping a district far to our west, and they have a 12-year plan, so.
Concern I just wanted to add that I had early on was the $1 million a year for this year makes sense, and I'm really glad to hear my fellow board members bring this up, and we represent the whole community, so it's great to hear all the opinions. I think that helps us all make a decision, so thank you, everybody. But I don't know if I can put $1 million away next year, because I don't know what's going to happen next year. And so that's what's kind of tearing me a little bit internally. I want to do the right thing for the taxpayers. I know we don't have the feasibility study complete, but I also don't know for sure that we can put $1 million away next year, because we don't always know what's going to happen in our district, what kinds of
Right, and this
mandates could come down, or the,
This
some
doesn't tie you
construction
to
could
that.
happen.
If you put
Yeah.
nothing else away because of this, that, and the other, economic reasons, whatever, if you only have $1 million, you have $1 million. At least you have $1 million and 3 years' worth of interest on that $1 million, so you're $1 million less. It's like if you can start your retirement plan when you're 23, you can retire a little early and be happy. And but if you could put a big chunk in when you're 23, if you could put the whole thing in, then you can forget about it. But you obviously can't. If you start at one age and something happens next year, you don't do it. If it's 3-year plan, the third year you can put $1 million in.
But also to remember is that $1 million today, 3 years from now is $3 million in the bank, right? And to your point, I mean, $1.5 million today is $4.5 million.
Right.
And even if you do nothing next year or the year after.
So yeah,
right?
just $1 million today will mean you'll have $3 million in the bank next year, or in 3 years, even if you put nothing else. Oh, you only have a $1 million line item, but you'll have $3 million in the bank with a little bit of interest. And so instead of borrowing $50 million, you borrow 47, and you got to figure out what you're doing with the budget that next year if your debt service is $3 million for that $47 million. Right. And you got all kinds of other options, which we didn't want to get into because they get kind of complex. But you'll be able to deal with that kind of stuff, wrapping debt and all that stuff. So we'll bring this back the way it is with a couple, hopefully, maybe one slide more of, what would this save a taxpayer over the course of 10 years if you did this now? And you had and what the architects think comes true, and you have to borrow that money. So what would be the difference of if you did the taxes now, phased it in for 3 years, versus just waiting and figuring out what you had to borrow for that?
All right, any other questions at this point? All right, is Jen on the phone? Did Jen dial in?
She's pretty sick right now.
I know she was. Just making sure before we start voting. All right, at this point, I will open up the podium for any comments on any of the agenda items that are on the agenda for voting tonight. If you have a comment, please come to the podium and state your name and residency. All right, seeing none at this point. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda items 801 through 826?
Move to approve.
Second? Do I have a second? Sorry. Second. Thank you. Any questions or comments on all these? I think a lot of these we reviewed in detail
I just
last
have a
week,
pretty
but yes.
simple question on the student overnight trips. There's lots of requests, which is great. I'm glad there's so many opportunities for our students. My children have participated in several of these clubs that are listed there, including Model UN, so I know the cost of that one directly, and although there is some fundraising, there's a lot of parent and student pay to do that. And I was just curious, for these kinds of clubs, are there scholarships available? There's great opportunities out there. We have great, competitions that we see here. We saw Model UN kids here tonight. One of those trips could cost $400 for a weekend. Are there scholarships? How does that work, and are they advertised?
And thank you for asking that question. There are scholarships available. Quite honestly, I don't know how publicly students know, and maybe Millie would have better insight. For every event that involves cost, there is always the caveat that if you have any issue with affording that, to reach out to either the coach, the advisor, or an administrator. From a student perspective, I'm not quite sure if that's as well known by all of the students.
Just to give my opinion, like, I think as far as scholarships directly go, like something that you could earn for submitting some type of application, I'm not aware of like something like that for those kind of trips. But like what you were talking about, I know does exist. I don't know if every student knows that, but like, because I've had leadership positions in some of the clubs, I know that like if someone has financial issues and are interested in going on one of the trips, then the club will help them with some of the fundraising that they have earned.
So it's really done on a personalized level, but I do think it's a great point and to reinforce to our advisors and especially at the high school, because there are many competing costs as you get more involved.
Thank you. I mean, when you look at this and these are available to the public, you see all the great clubs and opportunities there are, just makes you want to be sure that everybody can do those, right?
And just so everybody who can't see the list knows, I mean, the list is here because most of these are all about getting these all in for next year. This is one of the meetings where we try to get them all in all at once rather than piecemealing it all year long. So it's not that there's a huge amount of travel requests, it's just they're all in one pile, so it just looks bigger than it is, so.
I wish I could go on some of them. It looks so great.
Well, they're great trips. I mean, it's Quiz Bowl and music department to the different regional competitions and winter track and et cetera. Model UN, which we recognized tonight, so there's great opportunities for all of our kids on these trips, so. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Election of treasurer. So I talked to Steph, and she would be willing to stay on until December. So
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Steph for treasurer. I think she has done a fantastic job, and you three make an amazing executive team for this board. So thank you, and I hope you'll continue serving.
Well, thank you, and I'd like to second that motion.
all right. Now she's running tomorrow.
Too late.
All right, motion and a second. Any comments or questions? I think it's a great opportunity, so. All right, all those in favor? All right, congratulations, motion passes. 7-0. All right, election of secretary. You are the secretary now? And we're gonna keep you secretary for another 37 days? Okay, motion for Chuck to remain as secretary?
I'd like to move for Chuck to remain as secretary forever.
As long as I don't have to come to the meetings, I'm.
We can do Zoom calls.
Yeah, Skype. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Wait, so the motion is for to elect Chuck Peterson to replace Chuck Linderman on effective July 1st. It's actually an unexpired term. The secretary term goes 4 years. At July 1st? Yeah, and so I mean, technically, that's when I end here is June 30th. So technically, it's July 1st. You'd have to re-elect him again in May of 2021 then you'd be on that 4-year cycle again when all the secretaries get elected.
All right, so back to Ellen. Would you like to alter your motion?
I'll alter my motion.
Well, she just said Chuck. I think you're good.
Yes.
Clarify the motion.
Move to Chuck Peterson.
Yes. All right, we've clarified. We have a motion and a second. Any other clarification or comments? Too bad he's not here to congratulate. All those in favor? All right, motion passes 7-0. All right, there's a policy for reading and adoption, 1102, and then policies for second reading and
We
repeal.
also have the reappointment of the solicitor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You know what, I missed a couple, sorry. Reappointment of the solicitor, just trying to move it along. All right. I have a motion for the reappointment of our solicitor. Whistler, Pearlman, or Pearlstein is our current solicitor. That's the recommendation of the administration to continue.
Move to approve the reappointment of Whistler Pearlstein as solicitor.
Second.
All right. Any comments? I mean, I think they're doing a great job, so it's been well worth it lately, so, or since we started with them, so. All right, all those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Personnel items. Motion for approval for personnel items 1001.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
I have to abstain from this vote as my wife is a teacher on the list.
All righty. All right, any other questions? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0 with one abstention. All right, moving on to policies. Do I have a motion to approve the second reading of and adoption of policies under 1102 and the reading and repeal of policies under 1103?
Move to approve items number 11.02 and 11.03.
Second?
Any questions? All righty. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. All right. No other items for approval? All right, at this point, I will open up the microphone for any other public comment on any other issues. If you have a comment, please come to the podium and state your name and residency, and if you could limit to 3 minutes in case there's anybody else, although.
Good evening, Nikki Salvatico, 2000 Ruby Crest Drive. I'm also a first grade teacher at General Wayne Elementary, and I am the Great Valley Education Association president. First of all, Chuck, I want to congratulate you on your retirement. I want to thank you for your service for our community and our district, and especially thank you for the collegial relationship we've had and the collaborative work we've done. We're extremely grateful, and there really are no words. The only thing I will tell you is we do have a toolbox of strategies to deal without you. It's starting with a bracelet that says WWCD. What would Chuck do? I wish that was the only reason I was speaking tonight, but I appreciate the opportunity. So I sent an email to the board this weekend, and I hope you were all able to read it regarding our sick bank. A few months ago, we requested that we revise the MOU due to the nature of what our employees have been experiencing. These experiences have been tragic, very unexpected, and rare situations. But for some reason, our Great Valley community has been hit with them more than not. And it's our younger population of teachers who are in the prime of raising a family who are being affected. We lost a little girl at 3 months. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor. For 3 long years, she battled this illness while her mom, who had just taken maternity leave, had to juggle several medical leaves, naturally running out of sick time. Luckily, administration found beyond the sick bank ways, creative ways to help her get that time. Because she's a phenomenal teacher, and even with what she was going through, she was still there for our Great Valley kids. Another Great Valley teacher lost his son to a genetic defect, yet he showed up daily, worked every day, and gave that dedication. And again, time was an issue for time off to spend with his son. We've had a young spouse lose her husband at 37 to colon cancer, a 5-year battle. Again, showing up to work with all her heart, yet needing that spare time at home. We thought after this last tragedy, maybe we were in the clear and we were going to have a period of less dreadful situations, but we're not. There's a little boy who's 2, His mom's expecting a little brother or sister in September. He's facing the diagnosis of a possible brain tumor. Currently, he experiences at least 4 seizures a day. She cannot leave his side. She's going to run out of her lifetime sick bank days, June 4th. In the fall, she will go on maternity, yet she will have barely any FMLA left and very few sick days. She struggles with what her students are going through, let alone she has to sit there and make the decision to be with her son and her newborn baby. Often in life, decisions are made because of what we think other people are going to do or say. In Great Valley, I've often heard about a small number of people who speak up regularly. And believe me, that's okay. I admire their gumption to stand up for what they believe. They have a right to their say, and I know they feel in their heart they're doing the right thing, and that's so admirable. And I really, truly mean that. But that doesn't mean we have to make decisions based on that. If you know in your heart the right thing is not what they want. That's disappointing to me. It also shouldn't be discarded because in the private sector or other places there are different circumstances. As I tell my first graders, and I've told my own children, fair isn't always equal. We're a public school system. It's a little different. Our employees in the trenches, your teachers, psychologists, nurses, guidance counselors, social workers, who give their all and often struggle with being out for their own personal reasons, yet they are the ones who directly impact our students daily. Revising the sick bank to help our members who have dealt with these rare tragic complications in their life is not going to impact the district in a devastating way. But I can tell you where it's going to impact you most, that intrinsic feeling of giving and knowing you did the right thing. On Saturday, our members in PSEA lost a dear friend, named and voted in as our vice president of PSEA at the young age of 40. She never made it down to hear that she won the election Saturday because she passed away in her room suddenly. Why do I mention her? Because the one thing she taught me, and she did, was she made sure she spoke up and did the right thing. She knew she could go to sleep at night. And that's why I'm standing here today, because I don't know if tomorrow is going to be here. Today's a present. It's the gift. And like my friend, I know I'm doing the right thing on behalf of the Great Valley Education Association membership that I represent as their president. It's in your hands as the leaders, our Great Valley School Board. You're voted in by many more people than that small few who may challenge you regularly. It's in your hands as the school board directors to help us make that decision. And as GVA, we have said many times, we are willing to work with you. So tonight, I'm inviting you again to work with us. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, any other public comments? All right, the board the board is going to go into executive session to go over a couple personnel and legal issues. Ms. Armstrong and Mr. Ferre were not able to make it due to personal reasons, although we thought Mrs. Armstrong was going to dial. Yeah. Any other board comments?
Yes, there's a primary vote tomorrow. Please vote.
Very good point. All right, motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Have a good evening and have a good weekend.